I feel like The Nun is one of those movies that everyone has seen, and if you haven't seen it, you've at least heard about it. Anyways, even if you haven't seen it, it doesn't matter because I'm going to unnecessarily, thoroughly explain it to you today, like right now. For no other particular reason than just I want to, and it's what, day 8 now? Yes, it's the 8th of October. Don't need to look at the date, just trust me, it's 100% the 8th of October right now. In my eyes, because The Nun came out in 2018, that's actually quite a new movie. To me, okay? 2018 is new to me. I know that everyone else is like, that's like a really old movie, but no, to me, that's new. And I will never forget that year because that was the year where my last childhood dog died, so. This is what I think the order of the Conjuring multiverse is. Again, there was a lot of debates, but this is just what I personally think the timeline is. Feel free to debate me, I just won't listen to you. We thank these men for writing this movie. And we thank this director for directing this movie. Let me give you a brief little synopsis about this movie. So a nun in Romania takes her life, which if you didn't know, this movie is set in 1952 and the religion is Roman Catholicism. And taking your own life is something that just would not, like, it's just something that was not condoned. So the Vatican sends his priest to go and investigate what's going on. And while he's there, it is very apparent that something terrible is going on. Something malignant, something evil. I was thinking about my dogs and then I got sad, so I took a break, and it is now the next day, but it's okay because I'm ready to talk about The Nun now. Look at this vibe right here. Already we can tell that the tone of this movie is going to be on the darker side. And listen to the music. That is also setting the tone for the rest of the movie. Also, side note, can we just talk about how so many horror movies have such a good soundtrack? The opening scene is actually a flashback from The Conjuring 2, because remember, the chronological order of the Conjuring timeline, in my opinion, does not match up with the movie release date. In this flashback, we are acquainted with Lorraine Warren. This is the real Lorraine Warren and this is the actress. We're talking about the actress today. But yes, the Conjuring films are based on true stories, which is an entire other video to talk about. In this flashback, Lorraine is talking about the sensing of an evil presence. I know you all heard that. I know you all heard that. It's just coincidences, but I swear every single time I talk about scary things happen in the house. This evil presence is Balak. What you need to know about Lorraine Warren is that she is a clairvoyant. Clairvoyant, I think that's how you pronounce it. She's basically kind of just like a psychic for the paranormal, which makes sense considering both she and her husband are paranormal investigators. Now I know what you're thinking. This nice but kind of creepy lady isn't scary at all. Well, I saw this image and I really want to show it to you. It's about Annabelle and the nun's demons that possess them. See, that's Annabelle's demon and that's the nun's demon. And like this image has just kind of like stuck with me. Anyway, back to talking about the movie. She kind of just like glides through life. Remember Ed? Well, he painted this picture. And Lorraine is like, the demon in your painting, it's real, and there's a lot of suspenseful music in the background. Then we get a nice little title screen showing us that the following thing is set in 1952. We are now in Romania in this very beautiful castle. One day I want to live in a castle, or at least just visit a castle. We see glimpses of a cemetery. Pet Cemetery, anyone? Which is, yes, a movie I will be talking about. We see these two nuns. They are walking down this creepy hallway, holding up their little lanterns, and there are crosses everywhere, crosses lined all the way down, which tells us that the place they are going to is unholy, which is why they need all those crosses, to combat the evil. At the end of the doorway is this very creepy door with a message transcribed on it. The message says, "God ends here," which means that whatever is beyond that door is very unholy. The two nuns are apprehensive about going beyond the door, but as one of them points out, they have no choice, so whatever situation is going on is dire enough that they need to basically put themselves in danger, or at least the risk of an evil presence. See that thing she's holding in her hand? That thing right there? That's the relic. And they are under the impression that that relic will save them from whatever is beyond that door. One of the nuns opens the door and goes into the dark abyss. The other one drops down to her knees and starts feverishly saying the Lord's Prayer. The nun that went into the dark abyss suddenly screams and she reaches out a bloody hand through the doorway. She's holding the relic and gives it to the other nun and is like, "Take it. The evil needs a vessel to escape." She's like, the evil is gonna come after you. You can't let it have you. Like, you have to go. She's like, it's gonna come after you. You know what you have to do. The scared nun is like, I can't. And the brave one, the one who went into the abyss, is like, that not even God can... And she's gonna say not even God can save you. But then all of a sudden, she's wrenched back into the darkness. The scared nun, Sister Victoria, she was the one who was like on the ground doing the Lord's Prayer. She starts running, like sprinting away, which is like obviously what she would do if you were in that situation. She locks herself in a room and picks up a rope. Then a door opens and reveals this hallway. She takes a deep breath and walks over to the window and stands on the windowsill. She is like, forgive me, Father, for the sin I'm about to commit, and then wraps the rope around her neck. Valak is now standing in the archway, in the hallway of the door that opened. Slowly, the cross on the wall turns upside down, which, if you watched my Annabelle creation video, you'd know that is a very bad sign, as it basically just means everything Antichrist and demonic and just not God. Valak slowly inches towards her. She jumps out of the window. The cross on the wall is now fully upside down and it is set on fire. Evidence. To recap just slightly, Sister Veronica has taken her own life and has unfortunately passed away. This really dark image is then contrasted with this beautiful wooded landscape. This dude right here, he has a horse and carriage and he's singing cheerily to himself, and he has a whole bunch of vegetables in one of those sack bags when he hears and sees some crows. If you ever see or hear crows, it's a pretty good sign that there is a dead thing around, whether that be an animal or a person. And in this case, the body of Sister Victoria, who is hanging and she is now decomposed, and all the crows are sitting on her and pecking at her body. And that is essentially the intro and opening scene. Next, we change locations. We are now in the Vatican.
And this is, oh, whoops, sorry, wrong movie.
It's here that we meet Father Burke.
Father Burke.
Essentially, Father Burke is asked to go to Romania and investigate the nun's death. He's immediately suspicious. He's like, no, there's something you guys are not telling me. Like, you wouldn't bring me here if it was just about suicide. They basically just ignore him. They're like, you'll need to talk to the guy. Remember the singing guy from before? They're like, you need to talk to the guy who found the body of the nun. And then they're like, because you'll have limited access, we're giving you this guide lady because she knows the entire area.
This guide is Sister Irene.
Sister Irene hasn't taken her vows to be a nun yet, so she's very confused as to why the Vatican has requested her and she needs to talk to this guy, remember Pastor Burke? Anyway, Father Burke is like, they've requested you because you're familiar with Romania. And then Sister Irene is like, no, I've never been to that part of the world before. Then Father Burke is like, oh, well, it doesn't matter. The Vatican obviously has their reasons. Let's go. Remember the guy who was singing in French and he had the carriage and all of the vegetables? Well, he's now having nightmares. Like, he literally wakes up from this terrible dream of just blood gushing down the stairs from where the nun was hanging up. Sister Victoria.
He's not doing very well. This is his name, Mr. Theriot.
Father Burke and Sister Irene are there to talk to him. Mr. Theriot is very confused when he first sees Father Burke and Sister Irene next to each other. He's like, oh, so what is it? Jealous husband or angry father? Because he said that's always the case when there is an older man with a younger woman. Father Burke and Sister Irene are like, what? Sister Irene is like, you know, we've never met each other. And he's like, oh, okay, well, it's time we did. And then he kisses her hand. It's not funny, but like, it's a little bit funny. Father Burke briefly explains the situation, and then Mr. Thoreau then sees all the suitcases on the ground, and he's like, wait, so you're a priest? And then once he finds out that Sister Irene is a nun, he's like, oh, sorry.
At least he, apologized.
Mr. Thoreau, he says that everyone in the village just pretends that the Abbey doesn't exist because if you talk about it, it could get you into trouble. Then Mr. Burke is like, oh, good, then you're going to take us to see it. And he's like, no. But then when Sister Irene is like, please, he's like, okay. They begin their very long trip through the backwoods of Romania in their little horse and carriage. Maurice has a little tendency to flirt with Sister Irene, especially when he finds out that she's not actually like a proper nun just yet. As they are going through the woods, all of a sudden the horse stops and Maurice goes out to investigate and says that they have to walk the rest of the way because the horse won't go. because the place up ahead is cursed and he's scared. The Abbey has like holes in it from the bombs from the war. Father Burke just reiterates that the reason why he's there is to investigate the cause of the nun's death and also just determine if the grounds are still holy. I kind of thought all these crosses were a cemetery. It's not. It's literally just crosses in the ground. Maurice thinks it's to keep the evil in, even though the crosses are there to keep the evil out. And essentially everyone in the village is just scared of the Abbey. Every single time it is brought up, they spit on the ground to ward off evil because it's like just a silly superstition thing that they do. Maurice says that he moved Sister Victoria's body to the icebox to protect it from the elements. He also says that when he knocked on the door to let them know that one of their nuns had died, nobody answered. But this man is brave. You will not see me picking up a dead body and moving it. Absolutely not. To be fair, I don't think I'll ever be in a situation where that is needed. I better not be in a situation where that is needed. Do you hear that? Never, ever. They go in to investigate and Maurice is like, I still have one more thing to tell you, Father. See how she's sitting up just there? Maurice is a little bit worried because he's like, yeah, I didn't leave her like that. I left her lying down, meaning she sat up by herself or somebody moved her. Father Burke is then like, well, yeah, there've been cases where bodies sit up or twitch after death. Bodies can definitely twitch, but they will not be able to sit up. Glad we cleared that up. Father Burke prizes the relic out of her hands, which is not what you want to happen. So he's just picks it up, and of course, once he picks it up, all the doors start creaking and rattling. They give Sister Victoria a proper burial, and as they are standing in the cemetery, one of the graves has a little bell attached to it, and the bell just starts ringing. The reason why there is a bell, I just heard a little cat bell. Should we go investigate? Basically, during the plague, there was a fear about being buried alive, so people were buried and there was a little bell put on their grave, so then if they were buried alive, they could ring it and be let out. This is the bell that I heard. They go to where Sister Victoria's body was found, and the blood that's pooling on the steps is still fresh, which is literally impossible because the blood would be all dried up after a few weeks. Maurice does not want to be here. He has already expressed that being there was a mistake, and he is also like, this place is the opposite of a miracle. So essentially a disaster. Father Burke powers on through the front doors. Sister Irene pauses and does the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. And Maurice spits on the ground because remember that was the old superstition that the villagers do whenever the name is put up because it's supposed to ward off evil. This is the vibe of the place that they're in. There is also 100% a dark presence sitting on that chair behind Sister Irene. False alarm, it's not a dark presence. It is in fact the Reverend Mother, which basically just means that she is the head of the convent. They have to explain to her why they are there because from the way she's talking, it's like she didn't even know that a nun died. She is more concerned about the fact that they gave Sister Victoria a proper burial and not at all concerned about the fact that she died. Father Burke sends Maurice away and the Reverend Mother is like, you should be leaving with him. Father Burke, however, is a man on a mission, and he's like, wait, so you're telling me you didn't know about the recent passing of your nun? He's like, the Vatican sent me, I need to interview some of your nuns, I need to get assurance to take back, and the Reverend Mother is like, I can give you all the assurance that you need, and Father Burke is like, yeah, that's not gonna fly. Then she starts being all cryptic. I'm going to tell you word for word what she says. It's a little bit, it's very cryptic, actually. So, this is what she says. The gate will be closing shortly, as we are about to take our Vespers. Vespers are the evening prayer. Then she's like, followed by the great silence which ends mid-morning. Then she's like, come back tomorrow, and you will find the answers that you seek. There is lodging in the convent. You may stay there. Father Burke then sends Maurice away. He's like, you go, come back in a few days. I don't know what I would do in his position. What would you do if you were in Maurice's position? On one hand, I wouldn't want to be staying there any more than I had to. However, if I need to go back, this was a long, long travel, and he is going to be doing it by himself. And as I always say, in horror movies, there is safety in numbers. It's a lot more scarier when one person is isolated as opposed to being in a little group. But it's either he faces the roads alone or then faces a demon. So actually, if I was in Maurice's position, I would just suck it up and just leave and try to get home as quickly as possible. It appears that Maurice is thinking the same as me and he leaves, even though it is nighttime. That is him there. As he is walking at night, he sees a nun in the far distance. She looks at him and then turns, kind of like at the start. Remember when I said that the Valak, how she just glides through life? That's what this random nun did. Maurice, the brave soul, then follows after her. This nun is dragging a rope on the ground with her as she walks. So are you thinking what I'm thinking? Maurice is looking around very bravely when all of a sudden the nun drops down from a tree and lands on him and like morphs into a demon and like screams in his face. He starts running for his life. He's standing around all the crosses, so he picks it up, especially when he can't find the demon anymore. He runs away. If you saw my Annabelle creation video, you will know that there is a particular scene in there where Sister Charlotte with Mr. Mullins and he is looking at a picture with her and a whole bunch of nuns. Well, this picture is on the wall and Sister Irene is looking at it. Look, that is her. That's the same picture. And actually, if you look here, eventually it will show a demon. Look, let me play it because the demon, she does show... never mind. Well, just know that, like, the demon is there, okay? She is in the corner. She is looming over. For some reason, it didn't show. It will eventually, probably. If not, well, I mean, it's an Annabelle creation, so. Father Burke and Sister Irene are talking, and Father Burke basically says that he is part of the small group of people that is sent out to investigate unusual behavior. Sister Irene confesses that when she was younger, she used to have visions. Her dad thought she was mentally unstable, or worse, he thought that she was a liar. Essentially, the church got word of this, and this guy named Bishop Fawn was sent to talk to her, and Father Burke knows Bishop Fawn. She confesses that all of her visions were different, but at the end of every single one, she felt the exact same way. What was this way, you may ask? The thought that would be stuck in her head is Mary points the way. Mary is a very, very important figure in Catholic religion. Father Burke is a little bit unsettled like this, and he says that during the war, he was sent to investigate a guy who had visions. This guy was this little boy, his name is Daniel, and he was possessed. Father Burke performed an exorcism on him, and then he sustained severe injuries to the point where he couldn't recover. To perform an exorcism, you need to have like explicit permission, and of course you need to be religious and a religious figure. One thing that has always made me curious is why you can't just perform an exorcism, why there needs to be explicit permission. So I looked it up. One person said that it's very rare to need a true exorcism, and a lot of people who say that they need an exorcism have mental health problems, not spiritual problems. Another person said that if an exorcism is performed without prior permission, the demon will know and it will make the situation worse. But I don't know. If you have another reason, feel free to let me know. That night, jazz music randomly starts playing. You know things are gonna start getting weird when random music starts playing in the middle of the night and no one has put it on. Father Burke goes to investigate, and as soon as he shines his torchlight onto the radio, it turns off. He hears someone's feet pattering against the stone floors, so he chases after them. Do you know who it is? Someone has just pulled up out of the front. Someone has just pulled up out of the front of my house in this weird, creepy white van, and they're getting out of the van. I just made eye contact with the guy. So, do you know who is running on the floor? It is Daniel. Daniel is the kid that Father Burke talked about performing an exorcism on. I'm going to tell you this on the floor until they go away. Back to the nun now. That was quite the little adventure. They're still at the front of my house. I'm just ignoring them. You know, I just like ignoring things until they go away. Father Burke chases after Daniel, and in the distance, thunder rumbles. Oh, I just love dark and stormy nights in horror movies. The vibes, immaculate. Father Burke walks over to Daniel, and then Daniel starts gagging, and then a snake comes out of his mouth. It's quite disturbing. The snake charges towards Father Burke like... He then falls backwards into a grave that has already been dug and lands in a coffin, and then the box of the coffin shuts on him. There is a nice little gravestone for him. He starts ringing the bell quite erratically. Hear that? Sister Irene wakes up and goes and looks around and investigates. There's Valak just chilling behind her without a care in the world. I hate people behind me so much, and nobody gets it. Nobody understands. I hate people behind me because when someone is behind you, they can do basically whatever they want and they have the upper hand because you can't see them. And whenever I bring up very valid concerns that I have, everybody is just like to me, well, that would never happen, or nobody would ever do that. You don't know that. Don't tell me that people would never do it because people have, okay? Yes, the chance is unlikely that it's going to happen to me, but still. Anyway, Sister Irene ventures outside, and then Father Burke is screaming in his coffin, obviously because he's not dead, he's just laying in there. A good thing they installed those bells, but even as he is screaming, you can't hear anything. Sister Irene walks into the room where the nuns are doing their evening prayer, and then she sees a dark, shadowy figure of the evil nun, Valak, against the wall.
Look, see? And then she's behind her! Look how terrifying that is!
But of course, she's only behind her in the mirror. Not in real life. In real life, there's nothing behind her. Anyways, in the mirror, then someone grabs her shoulder and it's like... And then the demon appears and then things start shattering. The cross topples down and Sister Irene books it out of there. Father Burke starts ringing the bell and Sister Irene quickly rushes into the cemetery. Fearlessly, might I add. You will not either catch me running into a cemetery in the middle of the night. You would just not do that. Especially after I saw some, demon thing. Absolutely not. All these people in horror movies, they're so fearless. Anyway, she's got her little lamp thing and she's just, looking around a little bit. However, things can never be that simple, can they? Because just as one bell starts ringing, then all the bells in the graveyard start ringing, pulling her in all the different directions so she doesn't know where exactly the father is underneath the ground. And now she's probably going to think that he's not even buried underneath the ground and it's just the demons ringing the bells, even though he is actually ringing one of the bells. A good thing that Sister Irene has supernatural powers and she can tap into her visions. She closes her eyes and focuses a lot and closes her eyes and then sees the gravestone of Father Burke. She follows the sound and then picks up a shovel. After investigating and deciphering that it is actually Father trapped in the grave, he is in the little coffin box and he has a little lighter and that's his only life source and he starts trying to shake the bell, but the bell won't ring and all of a sudden he starts hearing scratching, yes, scratching on his coffin. So Sister Irene is shoveling, she's trying to get to the coffin, and as Mr. Burke is laying in there, a hand grabs out and grabs his face, and then a demon is behind him, and it's shaking him, and it's just ugh.
Eventually, he gets out nice and safely.
Father Burke is then there is a powerful evil presence in this place, and then he looks down into the coffin that he was just laying in, and look, the coffin is not empty. When he was in there, it was empty. When he gets out of there, it's not empty. Look.
Look at all these books. And there's a body. There's literally already a body in there. This is where Sister Victoria was when she died. Now see the blood? The blood just keeps on growing.
It is the morning, so now it is time to talk to the nuns. Sister Irene's I'll go and try to find Abbess, which she is the mother of the convent. She was the one who I initially thought was a dark presence sitting in the chair.
He then gives her, that is the relic, isn't it? I believe that's the relic.
So Sister Irene goes outside, and as she's walking, she sees a shadow figure of a nun walk past the window, so then she goes and investigates. It's hey, wait, again, these people are fearless.
There is a nun praying. That is Sister Ruth.
Also, literally my biggest fear.
There is a bird flapping. He's trapped in there.
I am very scared of birds. I don't really know why. I have a few theories, but I'm very scared of birds, and I don't like birds, and I don't like when birds flap. Literally, yesterday I went on a walk, and there were so many magpies, and if you don't know, springtime is when magpies start swooping people because of their nests, and they're very protective over their nests.
That is what a magpie looks like, if you didn't know.
As I was going on my walk, I kept waving to them, and I kept being hi, Mr. Magpie. Hi, Mrs. Magpie. You look really nice today. And they didn't swoop me. They did not swoop me. So hopefully I can build a connection with them. I know I said I was scared of them, but I'm trying to build a connection with them so then when the time comes, I don't get swooped. Also, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I was very on edge yesterday. So as I was walking, I saw this pit bull. There was this very, very small fence, and he was just kind of looking over it at me, a fence that he could easily jump. So again, I just talked to him, so then he wouldn't, I just feel it's nice to talk to animals, let them know that they can trust you and everything, so then they are less inclined to consider you a threat, Because recently, I don't know, I just keep seeing things about dog attacks, and it's just oh, this has no importance. Let's get back into the movie now.
Just as she is about to disturb Sister Ruth by putting a hand on her shoulder, she pops out of nowhere and is
we mustn't stop praying. And essentially, basically, All the nuns are praying in shifts to maintain a constant vigil.
Which basically just means staying awake while people usually are asleep.
Then we see this dog. Okay, I want you to look at this dog. I think it's a bear.
Why does he look like that? Literally, why does he look like that? He's giving us a side eye. Look at his little teeth. I'm taking a picture of this. This is going as my new lock screen. You thought I was joking? No.
Now, have you been curious as to where Maurice has been? Well, Maurice is currently in the bar. He's still holding the cross in his hands.
This is him right now.
Basically, in this bath thing, they cover the mirror with like a blanket because it is said that if the deceased look into a mirror and see their reflection, they then become a ghost. So Maurice is like, who died? And it turns out another girl took her own life and she was only 12 years old. The bartender is like, all the things that are going wrong is because of the Abbey, because the evil in the Abbey is leaking out amongst the villagers. Like, someone's entire crops turned to dust and then someone else went blind. Then the bartender is like, the people you took up there. He doesn't name them explicitly, but he's talking about Father Burke and Sister Irene. He says that Maurice is going to find their bodies. So yeah, something very wrong is going on.
Father Burke is just studying the books that were in the coffin. See? That's the luck there. And look, that's what happened to Daniel's, like, body. Like, remember when Daniel was running around? He spewed out a snake.
Then in the little room that he is sitting in, the gate then starts to close. So yeah, now he's trapped in there.
So this is Sister Owana, and she's about to give us the history of the Abbey.
It was built by a duke in the Dark Ages, the Duke of St. Carter. He wrote a lot of texts about witchcraft and rituals to basically call upon the forces of hell. Then hell used him to open a gateway so that unspeakable evil would then walk amongst them. Essentially, the church stormed the castle and they were able to seal the gateway using an ancient relic containing the blood of Jesus Christ. The church then claimed the castle so they could keep the evil contained. For centuries, it worked and the evil was kept at bay until the war happened and the bombs were put down on the Abbey, which basically caused evil to find another gateway to open up. And just as I said that, I heard a crow. Sister Irene inquires about the nun she saw last night, and Sister Owana is like, oh, I see her too. We all see her stalking the halls. Just as Sister Owana is telling us everything, telling us that this nun is unholy, telling us that her presence means she fears the portal has opened up again, this nun appears and she is inquiring as to why Irene hasn't taken her vows yet. We then find out that Sister Irene literally cannot leave the Abbey until sunrise because all the gates have closed. Anyway, she's like to Owana, do you know what this little relic is? And Sister Owana is like, no, but then she quickly bolts to go and pray. Sister Irene is then literally locked in this room. Father Burke is still studying. Then Abbess starts talking to him. Father Burke is very curious about the relic that was found in Sister Victoria's hands. Then the Abbess is like, it's too late, Father. Sister Irene is already lost because Irene now has the relic in her hands. And then the candle that Father Burke is holding goes out, and then Abbess like cracks her head to the side. An early indicator in these movies when someone is turning into their true form of a demon. He reaches a hand out to touch her, which, why would you do that? It's obviously not Abbess. Like, it's obviously not. This hand reaches out to him, so then he like tears it off. And then the abbess disappears. Sister Irene has a vision where her eyes are white and there's like blood on her cheeks, and then in the background it says Mary points the way. She also sees Falak there and the blood on the stairs again. Just like it's just a vision. Except when she wakes up, there is a nun praying in her room. Now remember, she was locked in the room. She was the only person in the room. So whatever is in her room had to bypass the locks. The figure of this nun, the bones crack. And if you'll see here, the cross has turned upside down. The nun's prayer beads fall upon the ground, and as Sister Irene picks one up, when she looks back up again, the nun is gone. Instead, she is next to her ear and she's like, God save you. Then she goes over to the window, she has the rope around her neck, and then she jumps out. But before Sister Irene can do anything about that, someone starts knocking on the door. Her door unlocks,
Someone in the abyss is like, "Sister, please come."
I know because of subtitles that it's Sister Victoria, the nun from the very start, but she thinks it's Sister Owana. Owana is such a pretty name. Sister Irene leaves her room to investigate, and as she is walking, she starts hearing water dripping.
We get this visual for a little bit, so it's obviously important.
Remember the hallway from the very, very start, the one where all the crosses were lined all up against the walls? Well, Sister Irene starts walking down that hallway. And remember the description on the door that said God ends here? Well, that door then starts creaking open. Her candle is blown out.
There is a dark, shadowy figure in the doorway. You've got the devil in your eyes.
Then there are great winds that threaten to pull Sister Irene back into the clutches of Valak. Valak wants the relic. There's this little bit of a tussle, but Sister Irene comes out on top and she still has the relic. As she is leaning against the door, hands do come out and grab her, but she's able to run away and escape. Another nun pulls her into the shadows and covers her mouth and is like, quiet. Sister Irene is instructed to go to the chapel because prayer is going to be the only thing that is going to get them through the night. Father Burke sees a nun go into the confession booth, so he follows, and as he opens the curtain, there's of course nothing there. Sister Irene goes into the chapel,
and there's literally just a body on the ground. Do you see that?
It's Sister Owana, so unfortunately she has also died. Back to Father Burke again, Daniel starts talking to him, and then the room he's in starts shaking, random hands everywhere. He sees Daniel's body, but Daniel's body is alive. Daniel grabs him, Daniel turns into the log, there's snakes. Father Burke is thankfully able to run away and escape. A whole bunch of nuns then storm into the chapel and they tell Sister Irene that whatever she sees, whatever she hears, to not pay attention to that and to just keep praying.
This is what has happened to the Mary statue.
As the nuns pray, wind gushes through them. All of a sudden, all the nuns are thrown backwards. Some are thrown into the pews, some are thrown into the walls. The statue of Mary, her face comes off, the stone splits from the rest of the stone. They have Jesus on a cross while Jesus' head comes off. Now, Sister Irene is all by herself, so the safety in numbers that came from all the other nuns are now gone.
Father Burke is looking back at this crossword that he was doing before. Deliveries was one of the words.
In that room was where Maurice would put the food so he would never interact with any of the nuns. As Father Burke is about to go into that room, there is a bell on the ground and it starts ringing, and like a cat following a string of yarn or something, he starts following it. There's this ice thing, and then a hand reaches out and tries to get him, and then a body follows, and it's like a decomposed, scary body. I don't know if you've seen The Descent, but in The Descent, those creatures in The Descent, that's kind of what this body looked like. But Maurice to the rescue. Somehow Maurice has managed to get back inside the castle, and he decapitates the head of the Descent creature thing.
So she keeps praying, but then the clothes are then starting to be ripped up of her.
Her back is then being viciously slashed and carved into, and we don't know how these slashes are appearing or who is casting. Well, we know who's casting them, but we can't actually see who's casting them. A star has been viciously carved onto her back. Also, Father Burke is now knocking at the chapel, and remember what the other nun said, no matter what you see or you hear, you just keep looking forward and you keep praying. Well, Sister Irene stops praying and is like, Father Burke? She goes to the door and lets him and Maurice in. Sister Irene is then like, we've all been praying, it's the only thing that's keeping the evil at bay. Then Father Burke is like, who's we? And Sister Irene is like, all the other nuns. But when she turns around, the room that was once filled with all the nuns is now empty and there are no nuns in there. Remember Sister Owana's body? Well, Sister Irene pulls back the sheet and it looks like Sister Owana has been there for a very long time. This doesn't seem like she has just been freshly killed. So basically all the nuns are already dead. They were just envisioning them. So it is safe to say that this place is definitely unholy. The Vatican will get their answers. Then Sister Owana's dead body transforms into something very evil and propels up off the ground and stabs Father Burke with the cross. They put holy water on the cross and then put the cross back on the demon's face. And Father Burke starts doing a little mini exorcism. The cross starts burning the body it's pressed against. The cross is burning hot like an iron that's just been put in fire. The cross was on this body and now the body is engulfed in flames. Maurice? A bird. Don't worry. Just a bird. Okay, I just heard bird. Okay, Maurice then shoots the body with a shotgun. Maurice is panicking. He's like, we're too late, the evil is free. But Sister Irene is like, no. For the demon to enter the world, it needs to possess a human soul. Now remember Sister Victoria now. Sister Victoria was at the very start. She's the nun who jumped off the window. She was the last nun there. This is when they realized that the nun did not kill herself. She was sacrificing herself, so the evil wouldn't take her soul. I'm back to being on the ground because the people are back. Maurice is then like, okay, good. Sounds like your investigation is complete. Let's go. But Sister Irene's like, no, we can't. She's like, we need to seal the gateway to contain the evil. The gateway is in the catacombs. Now, did any of you ever know Monster High dolls? Did any of you ever have Monster High dolls? There was one Monster High doll specifically. Her name is Operetta. And okay, I had that doll. I literally had this doll. Wait. Anyway, in Monster High, she essentially spent a lot of her free time down in the catacombs. That is beside the point. Catacombs are basically cemeteries, but like underground. I mean, like cemeteries, yes, the bodies are buried underground, but no, catacombs, like, they're like underground cemeteries. This is the more fluent definition. Okay, so yeah, the gateway is in the catacombs, but they cannot close the gateway until they have the blood of Jesus. Before they go scurrying through the catacombs, Sister Irene is like, I would like to take my vows first. Maurice is like, that's a very noble act, but he's like, it's still a shame. So she says her vows and Father Burke accepts them. See, I told you that would be important. Well, that's how you get down to the tunnels. You know things are important when they linger just a few seconds longer on something that is seemingly mundane and of no purpose. So they go down to the tunnels and are now in the catacombs. They are trying to look for the door because the relic is like a key and the key can open the door, but they're like, where is the door? And then Father Burke finds the Mary statue and Mary is pointing. And remember, in her visions, Sister Irene's visions, what did it say? Mary points the way. She puts the key in and there is a thing that holds Jesus' blood. Father Burke puts it around Sister Irene's neck. Maurice wants to pray, but Father Burke is like, no, there's a time for prayer and a time for action. Now is the time for action. And he's just like, I really think we should still pray. They don't pray and instead go through that door again, the door that says God ends here. As they are searching through the catacombs, they decide to split up. Yes, split up. Maurice's torch flame thing gets blown out and he is tossed against the wall. Sister Irene then hears running. And look who is behind her. A nun then shoves against the wall, but again she manages to escape from its clutches. Needless to say, she has found the gateway. She sees all of these nuns. But isn't it creepy to think about how all of the people they were interacting with in the castle weren't real? Like they were dead, like they weren't alive anymore. A pack of evil demons dressed as nuns then start chasing Father Burke. But they run away when he throws holy water on the ground and then lights it on fire. Maurice is not doing too well. He's very scared. He keeps looking around. He's holding onto his shotgun for dear life. He stumbles upon the room filled with all the nuns. And then Sister Irene is like to him, help me. So he's like, of course. Now, what has happened here is that Verloc has possessed Sister Irene's body. And then Sister Irene pushes Maurice against the wall. But Maurice then gets the blood of Jesus and like wipes it across her face, which causes Verloc to scream and then go out of her body. Unfortunately, Verloc then starts choking Maurice and she whooshes her hand to the side, so then Sister Irene goes flying. After Maurice has been strangled, he gets tossed on the ground. Sister Irene is now in a large body of water. Father Burke is then attacked. Snakes wrap around his neck, and then one of them latches on to his eye. So Sister Irene is in this large body of water and the blood of Jesus Christ in that like little ball compartment thing is in the water far away from her, but then she notices there's a presence behind her and then Verloc then comes out of the water, charges towards her and then pushes her head underneath the water. Father Burke tries to do an exorcism, but he just gets casted against the wall. Sister Irene manages to get it back and she's like holding it in her hands and then she is pretending to be dead. So then Verloc lifts her out of the water and the little compartment thing, it's empty. There's no blood in it. Where's the blood? The blood is in Sister Irene's mouth. So then Sister Irene then spits the blood onto Verloc's face. There is this very intense scene where all the water is getting sucked away and like there's like blood, and then Valak's face cracks away, and then Valak is sucked back down into the gateway. Maurice lifts Sister Irene out of the water. The gateway closes, he resuscitates her, and she comes back to life. Father Burke, he's a little bit shaken up, but he's okay. This is proof of the closed gateway. Father Burke's eye is bandaged after the snake latched onto it. They do a memorial for all of the nuns. Sister Irene deems the grounds now back to being holy. They get back in the carriage and everything is really beautiful, isn't it? Nothing more will go wrong, right? Wrong. Maurice has a little itch at the back of his neck. The itch is an upside down cross. They begin the travels home, and can I just say, this is a very beautiful landscape. I'm also going to put this as my background. Then it is 20 years later. Remember Ed Warren? He is telling everyone about a case he worked on. The case of Maurice. Now again, this scene is from The Conjuring 2. This lady in the audience is one of the characters in The Conjuring 2. Her daughter is the one that's possessed. But we're not talking about The Conjuring 2, now are we? No, we're talking about The Nun. So yes, we know that Maurice was possessed. What does this mean? This means that Valak was not sucked back down through the gateway and is still out roaming in the Conjuring multiverse. Then, that is the end. That is the end of The Nun. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you for listening to me talk. A lot of people hate on The Nun. They really do. And I did used to be one of those people, I will admit. But doing this series, this Halloween series I'm doing, it is making me appreciate horror movies so much more. It's making me appreciate all the little things that go into them. So would I recommend that you watch this movie? Yes, I would. You can watch them in whatever order you want. You can watch it in the movie release date. Me personally, if I could go back and watch them all again, I would watch them in the order of this timeline right here. Of course, if you're watching this video in the future and there happens to be another movie from the Conjuring multiverse that has been put out, then of course that list will be different and the list will be updated differently. That is all I have for you. Again, thank you so much for watching. I would recommend that you watch this movie if you wanted to. I wouldn't say this movie screams Halloween because it honestly doesn't. I feel like maybe this is a bit of a Christmas movie. Okay, hear me out here. I feel like it does give Christmas vibes. I don't know, I just get the vibe when I watch this movie. Okay, I'm gonna go. I will see you again later. Bye. Bye, Mouse Pack.